Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to Game Changer Chat. I'm your host, Zakiya. And today we're going to be talking about disability inclusion. We have a dynamite panel in store for you today. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with the introductions. We have Dr. Karen, Mark, all the way from across the pond in Australia. We have Maylene and Dr. Good. They're going to go ahead and tell a little bit about themselves. Dr. Karen Brown, go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Karen Brown. I'm originally for Louisiana, did 26 years in the United States Army as a combat medic and decided to transition from physical medicine to mental health profession. And I formed a company, it's called Link International, and we do consultations with companies and organizations and just business people about diversity and inclusion. And so I'm just excited to be on here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're most welcome. And Mark, tell us about what you do.
Hi, I'm Chief Executive of a not-for-profit organisation that supports around 500 people with disabilities across South Australia or Southern Australia. And we provide support in many different ways, from accommodation to some in-home support, some respite services, and daytime support as well. So we touch many people's lives, and I certainly learn a lot from the people we support.
That's wonderful. Maylene, welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Zakiya. Thanks for having me on the show. I am a speech language pathologist, and I've always been an early adopter to technology. So if I could be succinct with what I do, I have a couple of businesses. One is the Exceptional Ed platform, where we have courses that people can take to help support people with disabilities for speech pathology, autism, social skills, AAC. I also have a podcast, the Exceptional Leaders Podcast, which you honored me as a guest on just recently. And then most recently, I am director of growth and achievement with Cognition, which is a very forward-thinking AAC company where we are right now using eye tracking on the iPad to help people to access AAC. And then we're moving on to brain-computer interface in the next year or so, where it will be total hands-free ability to communicate.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Dr. Cherie Good, please tell us about yourself. Hey.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am Dr. Cherie M. Good, dubbed the Recharge Strategist. I am the founder CEO of Total Harmony Enterprises, Exceptional Wellness Candle Company, and Make Me Over Wellness, which is an elite body contouring studio and wellness center. So I teach the importance of self-care. So whether it be from skincare to just literally taking a moment of stillness, self-care is imperative. No matter what walk of life we come to, we have to first nurture ourselves so that we can present the best version of ourselves to the world.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. So let's get right into it. Talking about diversity and inclusion, we're celebrating 30 years of ADA here in America. And also this is Minority Mental Health Month, which is a national initiative. So, Dr. Karen Brown, how has your work in psychology research impacted your perspective on disability?
Well, I have to say that not a whole lot, because I've been aware of people that have disabilities pretty much all my life. I grew up my father was in the military, so we were around and grew up and raised with people who had some sort of disability in one form or another. And then I have two children who are visually impaired. So when I started doing what I do now, I was very aware that disabilities exist, and we have just understood that they're still just people. And what we teach when we talk about disability inclusion is that disability is not like a cold. You can't catch it, right? So there's no reason to be afraid of it. And we talk a lot about, when we're talking about inclusion, we talk a lot about allowing the person to define their own limitations rather than we put those limitations on them, what they can and cannot do. We allow them to define their own limitations. And I use the model PUSH, and that stands for protect, understand, stimulate, and heed. And so when we talk about protect, we all have a responsibility whether we are the supervisor or where we are the coworker, to protect that person that has a disability from whatever that may be, whether it be negative comments, negative actions and behaviors from those that are around them, and even from us, right? And then to understand what those limitations are, again, allowing them to define their own limitations, and then to stimulate them. So when they tell you what those limitations are, with my children, and what those limitations may be, I always ask them to go that one step further. It's that really is that push. And then you have to heed what they say. So if they say that it's difficult, or I'm ready to stop, or whatever that is, you have to listen. So that's our push model, and that's what we teach. That's what I live by, and hopefully this is something that that our employers, as well as our co-working employees, get a grasp on and just run with it.
Wow, I really like that push model, and especially the part where you say listen. A lot of people do a lot of talking, but a lot less listening. And when it comes to individuals with disabilities, you really need to listen to them because they know their disability and their capabilities more than anybody else.
Right.
And I also want to say, go Army brats.
Yeah.
I am too an Army brat. So moving on to Mark. Mark, why is it important now than ever in the times that we're living in? When we're in the green room, we're talking about COVID-19 and how it is across the world globally and how it's affecting us. Why is it so important that we have inclusive leaders in this time?
Well, I think one of the greatest risks we have as leaders of businesses and organisations is to be one-dimensional, particularly in our workforce, product design, customer or market opportunities. And when you think about it, how many CEOs, etc., have become undone because they recruit people that are similar to themselves, or people are just yes people. And I think as leaders, we need diverse opinions and suggestions and advice, so we're able to tap into different life experiences and perspectives, and so we can come up with imaginative ideas and creative ideas to solutions. And I think in my mind, when we're running a business, it's about providing quality to the customer, but it's also about making profit. So unless we have diverse ideas, we're not going to achieve that on either end. So I guess it's very typical in the disability industry for people to employ people with specific degrees or experience. But at my organisation, Community Living Australia, we actually employed someone out of the traditional space with different degrees, and it was by accident, really. Basically, we had this position where we needed to develop some IT software and some reporting processes, and we found someone from the mining industry because no one else applied, and they actually took a pay cut to work for us, and they had the right value set, and they questioned us, why are you doing it that way? What's happening here? And they actually came up with a different way of operating. And I think the same goes for people from different cultures and beliefs and abilities, with their experiences and knowledge. And so we can actually look at things through a different lens. So I think that's really important. And I think one of the examples that we actually employed someone that could really focus analytically on a task, and this person got a job in payroll, so they were really good at data entry, but also looking for anomalies. And so they're just flying in terms of success. But if I asked them to do a whole range of administrative tasks, they wouldn't have been able to cope. But because we're able to help them to focus on one particular task and succeed, it actually helps the organisation to take the next step. So I guess, one of the things that I'm really keen to do is look at how we can re-engineer our workforce to be very task specific and open the doors to people from different backgrounds to work on things that they love and can do well and succeed, and bring the organisation along with them.
I totally understand what you're saying. So definitely we don't need groupthink. And the biggest asset is being able to think differently, have innovative thoughts, and think outside the box. And people with disabilities is an untapped pool of candidates. And like you said, not just people with disabilities, but different labor pool, period. So I definitely understand what you're saying. Thank you for that answer. Maylene, what challenges do you face when assisting entrepreneurs in the disability-focused businesses?
It's actually very interesting. It depends on if the person has a disability or hasn't had a disability. So it's just different perspectives that we're looking at. And you don't have to have a disability, obviously, to create a opportunity offering in the disability space. And so that definitely is the first step of the creating your why. And I think that, we've all kind of gone through these scenarios where, why am I doing this, right? Because it's so hard, especially in the entrepreneurial space. And it sounds like everyone here has started something. So when someone comes from the space of loving someone or having had a career of supporting people with disabilities, their why is a little different than someone who has a lived experience of having a disability. And so that's where we actually spend a lot of time in the beginning, is really focusing in on, what is the reasoning, what is your vision, what is the ultimate outcomes that you're looking for.
Thank you for that. That totally makes sense. Dr. Good, when you work in wellness and the overall holistic approach to someone's health, how does that relate to individuals with disabilities?
Well, we all have a need for self-care. That's my area. That I specialize in is self-care. So we all have mind, body, and spirit components to ourselves that make us whole. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, that actually makes us more well-rounded when we have that diverse mindset, when we surround ourselves with different types of people, whether it be with a mental disability, whether it be with someone who has a physical disability. Just being around people, we get a different, I would say we get a different lens. We see things from a different perspective. And if we kind of put ourselves in that person's shoes or their situation, it actually helps us to be more empathetic to others. Especially, I've been a nurse for the past 30 years. And so diversity and inclusion are imperative in my line of work. Right now, I currently do hospice care. So there are so many different things that we have to learn about different ethnicities, different religious beliefs. And it really does make you sympathetic to some of the things. It makes you less judgmental. From a holistic standpoint, when you go in and maybe a family says, hey, I don't want my loved one to get morphine, you're like, why are you going to let them suffer? But you don't know their religious background or their ethnicity. There are some folks that feel that, that if you suffer at the end of life, then that means that you didn't live right in your life. And so they welcome that suffering. So just learning that, it does make you more well-rounded. It helps you to be more empathetic and less judgmental. That would be the biggest part for me, I think, as far as inclusion in the diversity piece.
Excellent. That makes sense. I want to open this question up for the whole panel. How do you address individuals when you're out and about, what are your feelings about when people don't wear masks? Because that definitely affects individuals with disabilities, people who maybe have low immune systems, things of that nature. I know, Dr. Good, you're an RN, so I know that you probably have some strong feelings about that. Do you just don't say anything, or what are your thoughts about people who refuse to wear masks right now in this COVID-19 era?
Um, the first thing I do is get far, far away.
Okay.
And that's the first thing. So, I mean, I'm making sure that I'm protected. So, I'm taking accountability for myself, making sure that I have my mask on. So I am protected, even if they don't. But I kindly say, like, well, "Where's your mask?" I may ask them, and I say, it is still very prevalent. It is still spreading rampantly, and so you may want to take it a little more seriously. Some people think that it's not. They think it's over. I'm like, no, it's far from over. We're getting reports every single day. Literally in the green room, we were just talking. We were talking about how my son just went back to college on Monday. They're sending him back
Um,
home tomorrow
oh.
because so many students for the pre-testing to come back to the campus tested positive. So they're sending them back home. So it is imperative that everyone does wear a mask. I don't get nasty about it. I've seen some incidences in stores and things like that. Just make sure you're protecting yourself. That would be the biggest thing I would say.
Okay. Let me just go to the comments real quick. Shelly, who's going to be a panelist tomorrow, says amazing panel. And then Miss McClure says, amen, you are so right. Listening to the person who has a disability. Andrew says, Hua, he's also a soldier.
Cool.
Um, Floyd said, excellent panel. Thanks for all you do. All right. So we're going to the next question, Dr. Brown. How has the research that you've done in psychology helped to eliminate the stigma attached to disability, especially mental health? Because we know that there's a huge stigma attached to mental disabilities.
Well, my understanding of a stigma is that stigmas are stigmas are stigmas are stigmas. So regardless of what you're talking about, a stigma is a stigma, and we address that. In my opinion, we address them all the same. Education. It's about education. It's about showing those role models, the exposure, right? Because you cannot. Well, I put it like this: your perspectives will change based on the level of exposure that you receive, whether it be negative or positive. And what we want to do is put those positive role models and those positive exposures and those positive behaviors out there, so that when people are seeing those positive role models, those positive examples, those positive behaviors, it changes their perspectives, even with mental health. Now, I'm coming from a military background where it's just not okay to go to see mental health, regardless of how you're feeling. And and we can say all day long, I'm no longer in the military, so I'm gonna tell it all, right?
Tell it.
When I was in the military, we were told all day long, it's okay to go see behavioral mental health, but you knew, don't do it. Don't go, because it will reflect negatively on your evaluations, on the types of assignments that you would receive, and the types of jobs that you would get. And so you have people who are at the end of their careers, right? They've spent I did 26 years. So they wait until that last year, and they know they're going to retire or get out, and then they'll go and see behavioral mental health, and they'll just dump everything. Well, you know what? It's kind of late for that. And I think that even our in the officer corps, they'll tell you in a heartbeat. You have commanders at all levels will say, hey, look at me. I went to see behavioral mental health, but they're at the end of their career. So we have to, the stigma of mental health, and not so much some of the physical disabilities anymore, because I've seen in the military, active duty, people that have have lost a leg or lost an arm. I saw a special forces, which is the Green Berets. He had lost an eye. and he was still active duty. So we've come a long way with the physicality of it. We can fix the physical. We can give you a new arm, a new leg, a new eye. We can give you new skin. Physical medicine has come so far. The technology is amazing. But what we cannot fix and what we need to work better at is working on that mental health, right? And so I tell people all the time, if we spent as much time and effort, resources, and money on keeping our military members mentally fit as we spent on our weapon systems, we would absolutely, and I think we have the best military in the entire world. Sorry, Mark, but I think we do. But if we spent as much money keeping our military members mentally fit, then I think that we would be completely unbeatable, absolutely unbeatable. And so, again, I hope I'm answering the question. I think the way to get away from that stigma is to continue to walk the walk, really, and not just talk the talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only thing I would add to that is that I know soldiers are also afraid that soldiers and DOD employees are afraid that they will not get their clearance, or their clearance will not be adjudicated if they go to get mental health treatment. So that's also a fear.
But let me just say something really quick. But it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
I do know. Yeah,
And here's the thing that's so ironic. It's the mental health professionals that are stopping them from getting these clearances based on the fact that they're coming in saying I have a mental health issue. Right. So we're hurting ourselves. And so and I think that it's because we're trying to protect ourselves. Well, if I allow this clearance to occur, and they go out and they do something bad, they're going to look at the mental health professional. Why did you clear them? So it's a protection state, and so I think it's an education for the mental health professionals as well. Think about what you're doing, and give the best possible scenario, as and the most accurate scenario that you can, based on what you're getting from that military member. And I know we're saying soldiers, but the majority of the people that are dealing with PTSD are your Army soldiers and your Marines, because they are those on ground, first in, last out type of forces. That's not to say nobody else is suffering with that, but we have to educate our military and our DOD behavioral health specialists as well.
100%. Let me just hop on the phone before I go to Mark. Victoria says, so true about the stigma in the military. Seeking help is considered a weakness in the military. Keeping military mentally fit is a good choice of words. It was a double-edged sword on the clearance. Yeah, definitely. People are concerned about their career trajectory. So those are all very valid points. Thank you for that. Mark, can you please, you've had years of experiences working with individuals with disabilities, and we're just so honored that you graced our panel. Can you tell us about a key moment or experience that had a huge impact on your life of working with one of the individuals you've worked with?
I guess, well, it's been a long time, and there's been so many different experiences and key moments, I think. And I probably could go on forever and take up the whole hour and a half or whatever it is just on this alone. But I guess right back in the early days, say 30 odd years ago, I guess I came across and was supporting a young woman then from an Aboriginal background who had cerebral palsy. And back then, people were lucky to go to school. If you had a disability, you were lucky to go to school. But also, if you did go to school, it was more about people minding as opposed to learning, a learning experience. But I guess what the impact for me with working with this person, Jan, she actually moved from uh, an institutional place where she was living, a large institutional setting facility, and moved into a flat with some friends. And that was a significant point in her life, a turning point where she could actually build her own friendship group and be part of her community, her local community. But also some other milestones for her was she actually started to learn how to use a compit board, so symbols on a board to communicate and talk to other people. It was non-verbal. But then she actually got an augmentative device to actually put it into words. So if you didn't know how to use a compit board, it made it hard to communicate with Jan. But she could put it into words using an infrared light scanner to point at this device that would spell out the word for her and say the words, which was fantastic. I guess also what was really important to me is I didn't realise it at the time, but she was taken away from her family who lived on an Aboriginal mission in the middle of Australia somewhere when she was a baby, because the government deemed that if you had a disability, you couldn't live in a remote area. You needed to go in an institutional setting to have the best support. And I think as an organisation, we did really well. We actually helped her reconnect. Jan would say family, and I thought, oh, that's nice. She's including me in the family. But what I didn't realise, she was actually asking me a question. I want to know my family. I want to know about them, what happened to them, who are my family. But the organisation actually helped her to go back to that Aboriginal mission and meet her family. Her parents had died, unfortunately, because the life expectancy of Aboriginal people on the mission was very low. But she had a sister and an auntie, and she's had gone back numerous times to connect. And she was just so excited, and the community were so excited to reconnect and to learn from each other. They were fascinated about how she communicated, so they learned so much. So she brought a lot to that community. But she also had, through all of those things happening in her life, she actually started to learn about what she could contribute back to her society, her community, and she became an artist. And she was starting to be involved. It was a really poignant time for me to understand that, it's unfortunate she didn't have these opportunities from a really young age, because imagine how much more she would have contributed to her society, even though she already contributed a lot. Can I just reflect on one other thing? That the biggest lesson of my life was from my brother, who was on the spectrum and had a significant cognitive disability. And one of the things is you don't have to say something verbally to communicate, to say something. And I never forget one night after a night on the town in my late teens, I was coming back from a nightclub, and my brother would often come over to me and look at me in the bed and touch me on the side of the face just to see if I was okay. He cared for me. He was showing love to me. He was saying, I love you, Mark. And alternatively, when he was pissed off with me, he'd yell, he'd make a loud noise, and that would tell me he was angry. So I think, we all communicate in different ways. And some days I'd go to work and my EA would just bring in a cup of tea. And I go, what she's actually saying to me, Mark, there's something about your mood today that you need a cup of tea and relax. So those non-verbal cues are really important.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful stories. And especially about Jan and how she just wanted to be connected to her roots, and just what nourishing and encouragement did. Everybody wants a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose in life. And of course, individuals with disabilities, we're no different. Thank you for sharing. Maylene, what is the first piece of advice you would give leadership on improving disability culture?
Culture is such a great word. And people actually say that with marketing. Like, it's really hard to create culture when you start a new Facebook group, when you bring people together. And I've read a lot of books, and I'm sure all of you have read a lot of books on leadership. It's what I see the most is when the person who is the head of the group, the head of the organization, the community, it's being a good example and modeling. So, people are always watching what you do and don't do. And as Mark is saying, like your nonverbal cues, there are times when it's the time for you to talk and it's the time for you to listen, right? And people, they feel that. And when you are emulating that and showing them, this is how we engage with our community. This is how we support. This is how we give feedback, all of that, then they can do that also. And so, it's that trickle down effect. We say that a lot in speech therapy. It's not just us going in and making magic happen. It's teaching the caregiver, teaching the mom, teaching the dad, so that they can also do that when we're not there. Because, we're not going to change the world in 50 minutes. And that's what I think good leadership has always been, in addition to obviously within a disability community. And these are things that we all know, words like respect, presuming competence, all of these things that if it's, for example, because I'm in communications, going up and talking to someone and not assuming that they don't understand you, right? So you're speaking to them. And I always think of like when you're speaking to someone that you think speaks a second language, they understand you fine, but yet you bring it down and talk really loud for some reason, right? But that's a great model. So if your community sees you doing that or something like that, then they're going to say, oh, this must be the way, that we interact. And so, that's what I think in leadership. The first thing is always modeling the respect and the types of support that you want the rest of your community to be doing.
Excellent. Yes. Model it. And then, like what was said before, walk the talk. Excellent point. I just also want the viewers, if this is providing value to you, please like this and share the video so that everybody else will get some of this good nuggets of knowledge that is being shared tonight. Please like and share the video. So, Dr. Cherie, what's the number one struggle you see today when people are trying to get to their mental wellness together, or just wellness in general?
I would say the lack of resources.
Okay.
That's what I've seen the most. And not only the lack of resources for the person suffering from maybe a mental disability, but the lack of resources for their caregivers who need the most support. And I'm speaking from a standpoint, I am a caregiver of someone who suffers from a mental disability. And the struggle is real sometimes. It really gets real. And I don't feel that we as caregivers always get the support that we need to keep us going, to make sure that we're understanding everything that's going on with our loved ones. And sometimes when we go and maybe we speak to these physicians about signs or symptoms that we're seeing, we get that nudge back from them that says, I'm the professional. But I'm like, no, but I'm a professional in the industry as well. So I fight back. But can you imagine if you weren't someone that was well versed in mental disabilities, or if you were just a layperson or someone who you didn't know that I need to speak up even more for my loved one? I don't think there's enough education. I don't think there's enough resources for the caregiver itself to make sure that person is getting everything that they need as far as a caregiver and as far as the person that's suffering with that disability. I think that once a person with a mental disability starts to get better, the resources decline even more. Where if a person is in crisis, they're going to get visits every week from a nurse in their home if they need it. However, when you feel like, okay, it's been 6 months, they're stable, we're backing off. Well, that's the time that they need you the most, in my opinion, because now they feel like they're better. A lot of times especially with mental illness, they may feel like, okay, I'm getting better. I don't need to take my medication as much now. So even if they kept those resources in place and maybe just lessen them, I think that would be beneficial. But definitely, the resources need to be improved, even from a government standpoint, from every standpoint, just providing more resources for sure.
Okay. And this question is for the whole panel. For individuals with disabilities, a parent or not a parent, and they're having difficulties putting up boundaries, what advice would you give that individual?
I would say advocate, 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 and then advocate again. You can't give up, right? And I taught my children, like I said, that I have two that are visually impaired. I teach them to change the narrative, change the terminology from I can't to I'm having difficulties, right? So because when people hear I can't, for them it comes across negatively. I can't do this, I can't take that, I can't go here, I can't. And so at some point, um, people get tired of hearing the I can't. I mean, it's just real. So, but people are, and I'm speaking in generalizations. People are more likely to want to help when you say, "Oh, I'm having a problem," or I'm having difficulties doing X, Y, and Z." People will say, "Oh, well, let me help you do this." Now, there are some they don't want the help, or they say they don't want the help. But it's defining those limitations and allowing the person with the disability to define those limitations and where they want the help and need the help and are willing to accept that help. Um, so but you have to advocate. You have to advocate for yourself. If you're a parent or a caregiver, you have to advocate for the person that you're caring for. Absolutely. And I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Cherie was saying when she said those lack of resources. And so you have these providers who say, well, yeah, or they talk over your head. You also have to sometimes stop them from over medicating or doing so much, or trying to tell you as the caregiver, well, they'll never be able to do this, that, or the other. And that's where you have to advocate and say, well, no, it may not happen for some people, but because the person that you're caring for, those capabilities. And again, when we allow those people to set their own limitations, and then we stand behind them and say, okay, well, they said they can do it. Well, in my experience as a provider, I've never seen anyone. Okay, guess what? See what's about to happen. Because just because you've never seen it doesn't mean that it can't happen. And so we have to. I'm a big proponent of advocacy and speaking up for the rights of ourselves and others.
That's wonderful. Yes. Does anybody else want to add on to that?
Can you ask that question again, Zakiya? I'm sorry. I was so involved in the conversation.
When someone with a disability, whether it's an apparent disability or non-apparent disability, when they're having difficulties with setting boundaries, what advice would you give them?
Difficulty with setting boundaries. I would say to have them make that a goal. Anything, I would say make that goal and put the goal in sight. Out of sight, out of mind. We've all heard that saying before, but maybe have those goals in mind and maybe practice that every week. Hey, this is the goal for you to today, and then have that placed in front of them where they feel like they can set that boundary. Today is the boundary that you're going to set is this. And then, if you set it as a goal and then focus on that one thing, for maybe that week or something, that will help to improve it. And just, as far as being a support system to them, reminding them of those boundaries, that, it's up to you to tell others how to treat you. People treat you the way you allow them to. So if you don't set those boundaries, and there's a book by I want to say either Henry Cohen, maybe is the name. It's called Boundaries. So I would encourage everybody to look up that book as well, called Boundaries. So there definitely has to be a clear line of how others treat us.
Okay, that's a very good one. Everyone, don't forget to like and share. And we're getting ready to wrap up, but I have to ask this question. My good girlfriend, Dr. Raj, she's always about positive affirmations. So I just want to know, what is, to each of you, what is one positive affirmation that you say to yourself?
I say a positive affirmation every single day. So I look myself in the mirror and I say, you are wonderful. You are blessed. You have everything that you need to possess to accomplish anything that your heart desires. Now go out and get it. Put on your big girl panties and let's go.
Oh wow, you have a whole speech. You go, girl.
Give a whole speech every day.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm one of these. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. There was a delay.
No, you go. That's fine.
Thank you. I'm one of those girls that I change them out. They're on my mirror, in the bathroom. And then I also have another one here. I have one here that says, I believe in me every day. I love ones like, just do you. Like I actually have to remind myself that when that started coming out, I was like, of course I'm me. But then you start to realize like you're in competition with somebody who's smarter than you or more accomplished than you. And I just gotta say, May, you're doing great today. Just do you. And believe it or not, that reminder really helps me.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Mark, what is yours?
I think this sort of relates to the previous question as well. Is one of the things I think is the biggest barrier for all of us is what's between our ears. And so my positive affirmation is anything is possible, and then we find those solutions if we believe that.
Oh, that's good. Dr. Karen?
My affirmation for myself and for people that are around me is this. For we know that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So no matter what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, it's going to work out for my good, because I tell myself all the time, if I find myself in a different space, I have to ask myself these two questions. Do you love the Lord? Then I say yes. Mm-hmm. Then I say, do you believe that you're called according to his purpose? And I say yes. And then I say, well, those are the only two prerequisites that are written that prove that all of this is going to work together for your good. So, and then I can get up and keep it moving.
Amen. Okay, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. A couple more comments. Isabel says, you are so right about the terminology. I can't. Victoria says, can I copy that one? So there's lots of comments, a lot of good. Floyd said, excellent panel. Thank you. And now we just have one last thing. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. Dr. Cherie, what are your final comments and thoughts? And please share with us anything exciting you have going on in 2020.
My final comments are, whether you have a disability or not, make sure that you are nurturing yourself so that you can be whole, mind, body, and spirit. Make sure you're taking moments of stillness. That means unplug from everything else and plug into yourself. As far as things that I have going on, I recently, in the last 3 weeks, opened a new wellness studio called Make Me Over Wellness. It's an elite body contouring studio as well as a wellness center where all your wellness needs can be met there. So we help people to focus on the inside and the outside. And what else do I have going on?
Well, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, they can get in contact with me on all your social media. I'm Dr. Cherie M. Good. On my YouTube channel, everything. Also, TotalHarmonyEnterprises.com or MakeMeOverWellness.com. Those are my websites.
Okay, thank you. Maylene, final thoughts and exciting things you have going on for 2020.
This has been an amazing panel. So thank you so much for including me on here. And I have learned so much. And I love all the head nodding. So I know that we are all of the same mind and community. It's just wonderful. Using the word disability, I think you and I had this talk also, is, using the word dis is not able. And as we talk about all the different ways that we are not perfect, I think that we are going to be moving away from that type of language. I think it's just a different type of ability. I have personally met and worked with so many amazing people who are able to overcome all of these things, whether they were born with it or if it was an event, and to see their courage and their perseverance is just amazing. I am putting together a book. It's coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's called Becoming an Exceptional Leader. And 13 of my previous podcast guests have each written one chapter and they are telling their story of how they've created their opportunity, whether it is creating a movie about people who stutter, writing a book, creating a digital animation company where people with autism can work so that they don't have to go out to work in the community, but they have absolute talents. Every chapter is amazing, and that's our offering. So you can get in touch with me. I am Mei Ling Chan everywhere, and hopefully you can be a part of our book offering. It'd be wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Mark, please tell us about what you have going on for 2020.
Look, there's lots happening. There always is, and most people that work with me, they say, "Mark, slow down. You know, too many ideas." But certainly, one of the most exciting things that I guess is a plus coming out of the COVID environment is how we're supporting a group of people with disabilities to actually connect online through running a cooking class. And cooking together with their peers and everyone else that wants to join in, and so you know, just navigating how that can happen, and support people to actually run it, control it, do everything themselves, as opposed to the staff doing it for them. So I think that's a very exciting thing. Another project is supporting some people with disabilities who are making muesli bars, and they're taking them out to schools for children that don't get to have breakfast, or maybe have forgotten their lunch or couldn't take lunch to school. So these people with disabilities are really highly respected and valued by the students and the schools for what they're doing. So some really exciting things that are happening that you know, have high impact and show what people with disabilities can achieve.
That's wonderful. And how can they get in contact with you and your organization?
So basically, if people wanted to Google Community Living Australia, they'll find us there. That's the best way, and they'll get to see lots of the exciting things we're doing.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Karen Brown, please share with us what exciting things you have going on for 2020.
Well, two big things that we're doing here in 2020. The first is a training model. It's called the Course, COURSC, course model, and it's a training for organizations that talk about cultural engagement and inclusion, diversity type things. And it's for the C is for cultural honesty, the O is for operating in context, the U is for understanding biases, the R is for respect for others, the S is for self-reflection, and then the E is education. So it's a model that we're pushing this year. We've launched it at the beginning of the year, and it's really you know, talking about those things that we're talking about now, right? And then the other thing that we're working on and we're seeking funding for is we're doing a series of books called Faces of Strength. And in that book, in these series of books, we identify people who have been marginalized. A lot of them have been or have disabilities. So our first target group is women who are bald, because we know that that's something that society they look at them differently, right? And so we're going to talk to those ladies, find out what their story is, and we're going to highlight their voices. We're going to elevate those voices, and give them back their power, right? And then we're also going to identify those populations who have children who have cleft palate. And we're going to, and it's going to be full color pictures, and we're just going to empower them and give them back their voices, elevate their stories. And so that whole series of books that we're working on is called Faces of Strength. And I can be found on all the social media platforms. My company is called Link International, Link with a C, and our website is linkinternationalgroup.org.
Thank you for that. All of you have interesting work going on. And I would ask you, when this is over, put it in the comments so everybody can make sure they get the links to what you said and have it correctly so they can definitely participate in all of those activities. And I'm going to announce that I have my first masterclass that will be on August 12th through the 14th, which is called the Thrive Class. And you can go to thethriveclass.com. It's a free masterclass where we can help you work on being your authentic self in these uncertain times. So just go to thriveclass.com to sign up for free. So this has been an amazing discussion about disability inclusion. I want to thank all the panelists for your time and your knowledge. And let's continue to have this discussion throughout the year about disability inclusion and wellness, as Dr. Good says, because this is a very important topic. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.